Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series, Maintaining Mental Health and Wellbeing in Crisis. My name's Marie Herrith and I am Director of Harvest Talent Recruitment and People Solutions. Before we move forward and I introduce Kate Meadows today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of our land, the Wathaurong, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander that is in our meeting today. So just quickly some housekeeping. You are muted on entry just so that we can manage participants. We have quite a volume today. I think it's really showing that it's a topic of high interest, self-care and maintaining our mental health. But there is a chat feed, so we definitely encourage you to put any comments, questions, or just share your thoughts as well along the way as Kate does present. Finally, our session is recorded, so you are absolutely more than welcome to receive a copy of the recording post the webinar. The next steps, Harvest HR, we've actually got a COVID-19 landing page, and you can find that at harvesthr.com.au. Also, any further queries that you might have after today, please call us on 1300 363 128. Now, Kate Meadows is our mental health first aid accredited trainer, and she has presented to some of our audiences here in the region of Geelong in Victoria, including the CPA discussion group, and she's also presented mental health first aid training in our office. But I've yet to see you present yourself, Kate, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm really significantly looking forward to it with homeschooling starting this week. Yeah, it's definitely something that we all need to be attentive of. But Kate's program, which we're going to just get a little bit of today, is part of a broader mental health and wellbeing program. The expert, Kate is. So please welcome Kate Meadows. I'll just, Kate, give you a quick introduction.
Thanks.
Kate is an accredited mental health first aid instructor, delivering standard mental health first aid, blended mental health first aid, and mental health first aid for the suicidal person training to a variety of businesses. Kate has industry experience in individual mental health referrals, crisis management and wellbeing support. Kate was selected by the Victorian Education Department to undertake an international teaching fellowship to Canada, conducting research in adolescent mental health education. Her thorough working understanding of the impact of mental health issues in a workplace, together with her outstanding workshop presentation skills, make her a highly sought after workplace mental health facilitator, even in webinar format. So please welcome Kate.
Okay, and thanks so much for the lovely introduction, Marie, and welcome everybody to this lovely, well, not so sunny day, but not that matters that we're inside. I'd also like to echo Marie's introduction of
Kate, I'm just wondering.
Yep.
I've got you muted, so
okay.
Let me see.
How's that?
That's better. You're
okay.
on.
All right.
I think,
okay,
no, you're on my side.
Should be working now. Can you hear me?
I'll just see if I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
You're not muted on my end, so.
No, and I'm not muted here, so I'm not sure what's going on. Hang on a minute.
Can everyone hear Kate? If somebody could put in the chat feed if they can hear her, because then it might just be my volume. Do you want to talk again, Kate?
Yep, can you hear me now?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, that's fine. All right, and thank you for the lovely introduction, but also I'd like to echo paying respects to our traditional owners of the land that we're all sitting on today, particularly our elders past, present and emerging. And I'd also like to acknowledge those of us in the audience here that are have lived experience with mental health challenges, because I'm fully aware that sitting, listening and talking and even thinking about emotions sometimes is very challenging for many people. Whatever we're feeling right now in this time of crisis, which really will potentially be a once in a lifetime event, there is no right or wrong answer as to how you should be feeling. So never ever feel embarrassed or ashamed or upset on any emotion that is sitting with you, whether it's today, tomorrow, or in a month's time. It's all about really working through those emotions. Now, what I'd like to chat about today is the concept of managing our mental health challenges. Many presentations I deliver all across businesses in Australia. There's many topics when we think about mental health. Sometimes it's about mentally healthy workplaces. Sometimes it's mental health first aid and helping others. Many times I deliver training, just very short, sharp training on mental health awareness. So what I've actually done today is collaborated my favourite bits from lots of different organisations, put it into a very concise and clear presentation for you, and hopefully you can pick up some tips. Now, I'm also aware that some of the audience today have actually sat through some other webinars in the last week, which have all been fabulous. And there might be a little bit of double up with messages, but I truly think that right now in this time, we can never know or focus too much on managing our mental health. Now, when we talk about mental health, the whole concept of mental health is the fact that your thoughts, feelings and emotions impact on your functioning. And when we think about mental health in the mental health industry, we always think about it on this mental health continuum that you can see on the slide. And in actual fact, at one end of the continuum, your thoughts and emotions and feelings can actually impact wellness and give you a positive, thriving, healthy life where life's kicking along well and everything's going fabulously. Sometimes we sit in this middle area, which we know as situational reactions, or this is really where mental health challenges arise. And if you think about that concept of mental health, that it's your thoughts, feelings and emotions impacting functioning. And when I mean functioning, I mean things like sleeping, eating well, feeling like you're able to socialise, being able to concentrate, being able to focus. That's our functioning day to day. And sometimes if we have confusing or tricky thoughts, feelings and emotions, that can impact on those day-to-day functionings. What can also happen is if we don't recognise these challenges, they can lead to become what we know of as diagnosed mental health conditions. And that's the right-hand end of the continuum. What we want to be really aware of is that for someone to have a diagnosed mental health condition, this needs to be diagnosed by a professional, so a GP particularly. We can't diagnose ourselves, can't diagnose our friends and family or colleagues. It has to be a mental health professional. What we need to also realise is we come and go along this continuum all the time. We flow back and forth. And right now in our crisis, COVID crisis time, there'll be many people in our community that have never ever had mental health challenges or situational reactions before. They may have sat in the positive health space, for a long time. So it's very common in a situation that we're in right now in our community that you may be feeling emotions for the first time that you've never felt before. We also need to recognise that if people are challenged by a mental health condition, that we need to really support these people to stay well. The great thing to know is that if someone is diagnosed with a mental health condition, and that's where life is very much, thoughts, feelings and emotions impact on the day-to-day functioning. And that's where that diagnosis comes from, the day-to-day functioning. We can work really hard to be well again. And we really want to encourage everybody to know that if you sit on the mental health condition diagnosis end of the continuum, then that's okay. it's very common. We know that approximately 20% of Australians in any 1 year are sitting with a diagnosis, and we can work well to move back to positive health. Now, something I want to share that I thought was fabulous, that, you know, we all have opinions about our government right now and what they're doing or should be doing. This was a really great tip sheet that they put out only just last week from the Australian Public Service Commission. This is actually looking at that continuum in a different light, with specific information about how we might be feeling right now in our very difficult times that we're going through. So the World Health Organization originally, many years ago, came up with the concept of the continuum, and it's a really great way to think about how you're functioning. So, for example, if you're coping well, still working on staying well is important. No matter where you sit on the continuum, diving into aspects of self-care and wellness to stay well is just as important as if you're feeling unwell and you need to return to being well again. So no matter where you are on the continuum, working on your mental health right now is probably the most important thing you can do. You'll see there in the reacting stage of the continuum that, you know, many people we know of currently are having very disrupted sleeps. I was speaking to one of our psychologists here in Geelong the other day, and he was actually just sort of saying many of his clients are showing, you know, really vivid dreams, which, you know, it's all linked to our emotions and our thoughts. But what we really need to make sure is if we are feeling like we're not coping, or someone we know is not coping, the number one message is if you can access some professional services and support for your mental health early on, not waiting until you can't function very well at all, it's going to be a better outcome in the end. So accessing services currently, we're very lucky in Australia, you know, to go through your GP with a telehealth conference and then get on to a psychologist through a telehealth conference. I've heard some really great feedback from some of our psychologists here in Geelong that are actually working really well with the telehealth, which is all very new for all of us. Okay, so some positive actions that, you know, have been floating around, and I know that there's so much information and at times it can be really overwhelming. What should I listen to? What should I believe? Who should I follow? What I've done is I've actually picked my favourite positive actions from some of our best mental health providers. So things like I've spent hours looking at Beyond Blue, Sane Australia, Mental Health First Aid, even the government's advice. And this is what I truly think is our, you know, critical, concise, clear, positive actions. The first one is each moment, try and be very mindful and aware of your thoughts and feelings. And I know that Jo on Monday will be delivering a great session on mindfulness, but mindfulness truly is a positive approach to managing mental health challenges. What it is this awareness is actually recognizing how you're feeling without judgment and just sitting with that. The second thing is to probably sit back and put things into perspective, because you may feel that your life right now is chaotic. You may feel it's overwhelming, but in some ways we really do need to surrender to that chaos. Fighting the chaos, trying to control things that, you know, aren't within your control is really going to not bring wellness. It's potentially going to lead to increased mental health challenges. Another perspective is that this will end. And I know that me saying that now, you're like, well, what, they keep saying that? We don't obviously have a definitive date, but the challenges we're facing now will end. It's a snapshot in time. Trying to get through each day the best we can is the most important thing. When it comes to perspective, a very, I would say one of the top psychologists that I've come across many years ago in a workplace setting actually said to me, one of the best things we can do is think the difference, the vital difference between important and urgent. Okay, so when we think about perspective, trying to focus our attention on urgent matters, So urgent right now for all of us is our health and well-being. That's number one. So whether or not it's working through physical health, should you be, come across the virus, or whether you're working on your mental health, working on health is urgent. Important is homeschooling, getting your kids through as best they can, and coming from a house of a high school teacher sitting in the other room delivering year 12 sessions to his students, I can tell you now, not every single person needs to be focusing on their health and other things like learning, even the work situations that we're in. We need to lower our expectations to put things into perspective of what's urgent and what's important. I think one of the challenges for mental health at the moment is just an overwhelming amount of facts about what's going on in the world. And this can be very draining. So I'd highly recommend having some downtime from social media and the news, and just find out the real facts. Don't look at Facebook chat groups. Just look at the World Health Organization and our government Department of Health release of information. That's the go-to. Nextly, a big focus in the world of mental health is when we can become quite anxious and fearful of situations if we don't have control. And many people who are currently experiencing anxious feelings that have never had them before, it's because they really have had things happen to them recently that they have no control of. And I know that in a previous presentation, Rick mentioned the grief situation, and it's absolutely true that you may be feeling those stages of grief that we go through, because grief can pop up when we, with any sort of loss we face in life, whether it's a loss of a job, loss of our freedom, loss of a loved one. We can't control these situations, but we just need to come back to that awareness of how we're feeling. Now, staying connected with others is a positive approach to mental health at this time, and whether you like it or not, that virtual platforms of Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams, whether you play bingo or have a glass of wine at the end of the week with a friend, it is being connected. So I'd highly recommend staying connected the best you can, and stay connected. Potentially also, I'd love to suggest that everyone reach out to one or two people in their lives or their community that they think may be struggling even more than you are. So someone who potentially is isolating individually, that's a very difficult place to be. Or someone who is an elder of the community that you could potentially be helping. The last, and probably most important one, is practicing self-care. Now, self-care, we'll go on to the next slide, because the self-care concept is taking part in activities and being very mindful of what we do in life to stay well. And if we're not feeling mentally healthy, it helps us to get back onto that end of the continuum of wellness. So the Super 6 aspects of self-care are pretty clear. They're very concise, but taking part in something in all of these aspects is important. So sometimes when I deliver training at, pretty large firms and corporations, and they're working very long hours, their true thoughts before we begin is that self-care is all about staying healthy and fit and eating well. Well, that is one aspect of self-care, but they're all very important. So first of all, if you were to take part in a self-care workshop, we would workshop these even to a sort of a more of a degree than I can and have time for today. The first aspect of self-care is all about awareness. And this is understanding your thoughts, feelings and emotions, knowing how you're feeling, but also having a bit of a knowledge and understanding about mental health and knowing the difference between anxiety, what it is, knowing what depression might feel like, knowing even what substance use disorder may feel like. So at what point is it really important to access help? So the awareness of our thoughts and feelings is the first aspect, and a bit of knowledge about mental health. The second aspect of self-care is very much focused on our physical health, because there's a very clear link between physical and mental health. The physical aspects include things like exercise, healthy eating, and sleeping. Currently, I would highly recommend having a little look at the topic of sleep hygiene. If you can Google anything, sleep hygiene offers some great awareness ideas on how to actually sleep better. We can actually train ourselves to sleep better. Even things like room temperature, going off a device before bed, that type of stuff can actually really improve your sleep. The third aspect of professional self-care, there's two elements here. First of all, professional self-care is all about knowing which mental health professional you can access. So whether or not your chosen sort of avenue of support might be your GP, it might be a private psychologist, it might be accessing your EAP service, but just knowing that we want you to access a professional, someone who's trained in mental health, someone who's got a background and understanding of how to support. The last thing we want is people in this time of crisis to go and access services that are not beneficial. The second aspect of professional is actually engaging in something that you can achieve. So this is actually relevant to young people in their schooling, but also to professionals in their work setting. So just lowering our expectations right now and making sure we have something that we can achieve each day, even just something very small. The fourth aspect of self-care is about our emotional self-care. And really the key elements here are things like practicing gratitude. You will have enormous mental health benefits by actually showing and demonstrating just some type of gratitude or kindness towards someone else. It's beneficial to the person you're helping, but actually in a mental health sort of sense, it actually helps you as well. We have to really sit back and have empathy when we think about emotional self-care, and most definitely being mindful. So kindness is a big part of improving mental health right now, and that comes under that emotional aspect. The fifth aspect of self-care is what we call human spirit. And this is all about actually diving into you as a person and working on something that you enjoy. So whether or not that's a passion of some sort that you're developing. So it might be music or art or even exercise, could be reading a good book, Netflix series, but spending time each day embracing in something that actually calms your soul. This can even be, a place of worship or for some of us here in Geelong, we've lost a big passion in our footy team not playing, but we can still work on small little passions that maybe calm us. I don't like the sort of language of going out and finding a passion, and don't ever feel guilty if you don't have a passion. Even a small passion like making a good coffee or baking something is helpful. In the world of mental health, it's actually interesting to know that baking is a very positive thing to do. Not only is it mindful because you're following instructions to make something, but to actually have achievement of an outcome of something that you're proud of, and then the enjoyment of eating it. Baking sort of research shows it's a very calming sort of human spirit activity. Number 6 aspect is probably my favourite. I'm a pretty social person. I love my friends and family, and finding ways to keep social is so important. Socialising and keeping in touch with people is great, but we also need to embrace some type of humour in each day. So find your funniest friend, Zoom call them or phone them and have a laugh. Don't feel guilty for laughing at, memes and things about coronavirus, because in some ways we need to have humour. It's a big part of our lives of self-care is actually having a laugh each day. So don't feel guilty for laughing when this situation is so serious. We need to get that outlet as best as we can. Now, when it comes to, so just to refocus, there are 6 aspects of self-care, and there's so much to learn and to discuss and to think about with those. That's a very quick snapshot. In the session that I do deliver as a workshop, what I absolutely do is help each and every individual to develop a self-care plan for the next 12 months. And it's very interesting to see where people rate themselves on these 6 aspects, because I guarantee there is very few people in the world that are doing all 6 of them very well. They are all equally weighted when it comes to positive mental health. Now, moving on to the next slide, I just want to give you a bit of a snippet of information on how to manage really strong emotions, and whether or not it's your emotion that you need to focus on, or it's someone in your home that you're, looking after or caring for, or even just trying to get through this situation with. In my years of crisis counselling, this is a great acronym. It's called CARP. Now, carping yourself or carping someone else, it's a very clear way of actually focusing. If someone's emotions are just heightened and they're having a complete, what we call a meltdown, the way to focus on this is to firstly comfort the person, or comfort yourself even, knowing that it's okay to feel like that. Actually normalizing the fact that in the world of mental health, it's okay to feel strong emotions. Never feel uncomfortable about that. It's the way we are as humans. The second thing we want to do is acknowledge the emotion. So even if coming up with a name for it, I know my 15-year-old son had a complete meltdown the other day, and just to sit with him and say, tell me exactly what you're feeling. Like, what is the name of that emotion you're feeling? And after a bit of to and fro chatting, he could name it was fear. The fear of, when will this end? Who's going to, get COVID? How's it all going to happen? The R aspect is about recognizing the issue. So if we have an emotion that's strong, that is really sitting there with us, that is upsetting and causing, impact on our functioning, what is the actual issue that's causing that emotion? And after, a lot of calm sort of chatting and discussing and asking open questions, we came up with the fact that the issue was just far too much exposure on the news and information and things coming in from school and family, and it's like, I'm overwhelmed. And the plan of attack is about, okay, if we know the emotion and we're okay with sitting with that emotion, we're recognizing the issue that's causing it, what are we going to do? So each individual really does need to take responsibility for their own mental health, but we can support others with that as well. So the plan of attack, what are you going to do to try and improve this feeling, and what can I do to help? The big question to ask someone, what can I do to help? And really, those supportive conversations, the World Health Organization has a fabulous concept, the 3 L's: look, listen, and link. Looking for changes in someone, listening to what they need, how you can help them. When you're having a conversation with others, always remember we have 1 mouth and 2 ears, more listening than talking if you can. And the link aspect is actually linking to professional services. The last slide to finish off, I really want you to be aware of some fabulous services that are out there to support mental health challenges right now. Some phone numbers on that slide for you, particularly Beyond Blue. But Beyond Blue have actually had a huge amount of funding from the federal government to support us all as Australians through this crisis of mental health. I would highly recommend the bottom website there, the bottom link, the Coronavirus Beyond Blue Health and Wellbeing page. It was launched yesterday. It's absolutely fabulous. You can get counselling sessions through there, but you can also get a whole lot of information. So all the services up there I'd highly recommend. And I know I've been speed talking. This is my favourite quote we can all live by, that we can let your smile change the world, but don't let the world change your smile. We absolutely can get through this. There will be times, it's not a matter of if you're going to have mental health challenges, it's when it's going to happen. And arming ourselves with tools to get through those times is it's a vital part of what we need to do right now.
I love that finishing off, Kate. I love your style because Kate knows her stuff without a doubt. There's a lot there, and every slide is just like, this is just
a little tidbit. You know, there's so much more to come.
Yeah.
But you've also got such a nurturing style. It's like, you know, having a warm hug, and I think we all need a warm hug right now.
Oh, I wish I could give everyone a warm hug, I tell you.